Hi, ladies. Welcome to another Encouraging Women podcast. Enjoy your children. Today, we have a topic for you: the dangers of custody and why be his bride. So, I'm just going to leave it there. We'll see a little later what all of this is about. And it's so exciting. So, I'm going to introduce my guests to you. My guests is Erin and Adina. Welcome, Erin and Adina, if you just want to say something.
I'm very happy to be here. I've missed our podcasts. It's like getting together with friends, and I hope that everybody's listening feels they're part of it. I would take over and talk all the time anyway, so you wouldn't have a chance to talk. You both know that, and you can attest to it. So you would just be listening anyway, but I hope you feel like you're part of it. And if you comment underneath the video, it could end up telling us something that we should discuss the next time. So I want, we can do more participation, at least in that way.
For sure, definitely. And I enjoy reading the comments that the ladies leave.
Mm-hmm.
That even if it's just a part of our podcast that
Mm-hmm.
bless their hearts, it inspires us for next time
Mm-hmm.
as well. Adina, hi, welcome.
Hi, ladies. I'm also so glad to be back, and I'm looking forward to today's topics. And I agree, if you just leave a comment, make suggestions on something you need us to talk about or want us to talk about, then that would be amazing.
Yes. This month I'm turning 70, so I'm definitely an older woman, right? So, and I'm much wiser. And here's the wisdom that I'm going to share with you. I know nothing. I have a lot of, I know his word like crazy, at least when it comes to children and family, the things that a woman needs to know. So I know that. I have a great understanding that comes from doing what he says. You don't understand it until you do it. You can't understand why you do something. It's kind of like parenting. You don't understand about being a parent until you are a parent, right? You can't, on one side, you can't understand it, right? If you're outside of it. And I have the understanding and, of course, the knowledge, the Bible knowledge. However, I know nothing. I don't know when to apply it. I don't know and it just means you have to have that relationship with your husband who knows everything and he'll answer. And inevitably, I will think of something and I'll think, oh, I'll do it like this. And then I stop, wait a minute. And then I ask my husband, darling, wait, what should I be doing? And so often it's the exact opposite, the exact opposite. And I'm like, wow, I would never have done it like that. So that is so key to enjoying your children, to being a wonderful mother and mothering your children, enjoying it. Just everyday life, whether it's workers at home, everything, you just have to, it's good to know his word for sure, and understanding the principles and all of that is good. But when to apply it, the wisdom I say is ask him every single time. Don't assume. And we're human. We're going to just do things naturally. We're not a robot. But if you have a person that, your best friend is there, or somebody you adore and you're in love with them, you're going to ask them, what should we do? Should we do this? Should we do that? That sort of relationship, the more you can develop it, my gosh, it's such a wonderful life. It's just absolutely wonderful. And I know both of you can attest to it. Maybe I should stop and you want to do that before we go on to the topic.
Yes, for sure. It was just, again, today, I was listening to a message that you left, and you were talking about a lovely word that I didn't know even existed, the word ditzy. And, and
Well, that's
it's a
me.
beaut. I didn't even know. And so I was just reminded of, because I'm very scatterbrained, right? I would lock myself out of places. I would forget my keys everywhere. I'm like that. And I really thought that when I met him, he would change that. He would really, because I
Isn't
saw
that
it as
funny?
a flaw, and he never did. But he changed me in the sense that when it happens, I'm not irritated with myself anymore. I can laugh
Oh,
about it
isn't
with
that
him.
wonderful?
Just so it's just such a lovely life that we're living, even
It
when
is. To
the
be
children
so
that
loved. I think that's the
exactly,
thing. When you really
exactly.
experience his love, it's like you're not afraid of it. It says perfect love casts out all fear. Look, isn't that exactly it? And so it's okay. And you're this whole ditzy. I was a little bit ditzy before. And instead of getting better, especially we just moved and everything is kind of disorienting. And I've been hanging out with one of my daughter-in-laws who I absolutely love it. And she gets kind of ditzy because well, she says because she's blonde, but we get our hair colored together. But anyway, oh, and that's right. I am going more blonde because I didn't want the gray to show. So that was so maybe that's why. But no, seriously. But it has helped her so much because we say when we're out together, we need one another. She relies very much on my son, who's very a leader, and she said, I just love to submit. Isn't that just music to your ears? Can you imagine when your sons have wives and they
Oh,
love to submit to their husbands? I have that with my daughter-in-laws, every one of them. Just right? Is that just crazy?
beautiful.
It just is
Mm.
like, how is that possible? And when we're talking about raising children, and a lot of them, because we're single parents, we're single mothers, there's a lot of times another woman, and in the example of the father figure isn't what you would really want for your sons to have. We can just say that that's the truth. And yet, when you do what he wants you to do, when you're seeking after him, you're doing what he wants, he's going to take care of it. My sons didn't really have an example at all. And yet they're like the best, kindest, most loving and patient, something they did not see. They did not see it. And I wasn't trying to tell them it all the time. Oh, you need
Yeah.
to be this. You need to be this. I just trusted their Heavenly Father to be there, and they are. And I mean, every day I'm just in awe of the way that they are as husbands and fathers. Anyway, getting back to the ditzy thing, I'm more ditzy. And I've even embarrassed myself with my new landlord. And I said, oh, darling, why didn't you stop me? And he said, why? I don't want you to care about your reputation. Let them think you're a ditz. And I'm thinking, that's a thought. Okay, it's good. Now I don't have to worry about it, right? Because why am I trying to have him think, oh, she's brilliant or she's that? I don't want his accolades or his, right? I don't need all that. And I think it's a
Mm.
wonderful thing. And just to let people know that they can be it. Anyway, I interrupted you, but please finish your ditzy thing. That's so funny. That's an old term. That brings in my
Yes.
age and it's probably even older than I am because I had older parents and it came
Mm.
from them. So they would
Oh,
say, so it's
oh,
pretty far
nice.
back. That's a,
I love old words like that. It just yeah, the
yes.
children always say that sometimes I use words that they don't even know and they don't hear anywhere else. Because I would tell them when they're busy doing something, I would tell them, we have to leave now. Stop dilly-dallying. And
Yes,
they,
dilly-dally. That's another one.
we
That's
never
the old
hear
one.
that from anywhere. And I use it
Mm-mm,
all the time. Yes.
That's lovely.
Hmm.
Adina,
Do
I
you
can't imagine being ditzy. Do you want to move on to the
No, I think
topic?
she's very organized and
She's very
No,
much
no,
together.
I
She's got
think,
an intelligence that's way surpasses.
but I want to tell you this little story because my dad was extremely clever, and he also
Mm.
looked a bit like Einstein
Oh,
with his
wow.
head.
That's
And
lovely.
the one day he was on his way home from work, and he was stopping to put in petrol or gas into his car. And while he was outside and he was filling in the logbook for the work for the petrol, he took his false teeth out of his mouth
Oh,
and he put the one on the car's roof.
oh my
no.
goodness.
And he drove home, and then he realized he's missing his teeth, and we
Oh my
couldn't
goodness.
find it. And the next morning, when he went into the garage to go to work without his teeth, his false teeth was staring at him.
Oh no, really?
Yes, on
That's
the So on his way from driving home
Yes,
from the gas station, the teeth just
they just
remained
stayed there.
on him. Yes.
Okay,
So,
this is so crazy. Can I just tell you, my dad, he had a, you can even look it up. It's a MGTC. It's a convertible. It came from England. It was right-hand drive. Anyway, it had these pretty magnificent bumpers. Like it's a
Mhm.
lot different than they are. Anyway, he told me the story, he put his foot up to tie his shoe and he put his lunch up on the top of the car, right? And he got to the studio because he worked for the studios, and his lunch was still at the top of the car. He drove this really fancy car with this. I'm assuming it was a brown paper bag because I don't remember ever having kind of lunch pails or anything. My dad wouldn't have that. But isn't that funny? How is that possible?
Yes.
Right?
that,
How is that possible? That and your Einstein dad. I'm glad you shared that because my dad was very clever, very intelligent, very put together. I'm just not that way. I mean, supposedly my IQ is really high, but you'd never know it. I don't know it. I mean, I can't like, but I'm just ditzy in that way. And I used to be embarrassed about it. I used to get called out on that when I was, married to a
Mm.
human. But when you're married to your husband, he just thinks you're
Oh,
wonderful. He's
yes.
just like, don't, who cares? What does it matter? And my sons would be that with their wives. They really would, just like that, because it is that unconditional love, and because they have relationship with the Lord.
Mm.
He's the head of them, so of course they're going to be guided by him. But I think that's wonderful. I love that we started this whole ditzy thing and making mistakes and like making a mistake or creating an error. The instinct is like, oh no, oh no, oh my gosh,
Mm.
what did I do? Right? That's the
Mm.
instinct. But then instantly he reminds me, it's fine. And then I think, oh my gosh, now I get to see how are you going to fix this mess that I just created? And I just sit in awe. And men love you know, to solve issues, right? Especially
Yes.
when we sit there and we're excited and we are in awe. They love doing that. And so it's the same way with this relationship. But of course, only better. Do you want to go on to the topic? I'm sorry, we got off on
Definitely.
things, didn't
Yes.
we?
No, that's
Or
okay.
maybe that
Gotta
was
go.
you. You got us off on it.
Yes,
So
yes,
that's
it was
okay.
all
That's
me.
okay. Good.
So,
I usually am the one who messes everything up, so I didn't, but I'll let you claim that one.
thank you. Yeah, so the dangers of custody is our topic for today. And while we go into the topic, I just want to say, and I don't want to mention any names because I don't want to say something about people, but the dangers of custody, for me, we don't really have like a physical danger. But just the other day, I heard, about two people that were fighting in the street about the custody of their son, and it wasn't that they were fighting with like, fighting in the sense of,
Physically. Yes.
physically, right? But
Yes.
they were shouting, and imagine what
Mm,
that does to the child that
yes.
is in that situation. So
Yes. Yes. To be
definitely,
torn apart in that.
yes,
Yes.
yes. And
And
it's not
having
just
to choose and having to
exactly.
talk badly or these kinds of things, it's just become just
Mm,
obsessive. I think it's the lack of how many children, because
yes,
nobody has any to spare. They might have one, they might have two, and
exactly.
the children are not considered blessings or
Mm,
assets to the family unit, right? They become possessions and
yes.
disposable with abortion and a commodity like with surrogacy and the dangers of that. And oh my gosh, some of the things that have gone on since that, where they mix up the wrong embryos. I was seeing that. And some of these things that I watch, I don't want to watch them. I don't want to know about these life or death and
Mm,
how many murders. It's happens more in the United States. I think the affluence that we have so much money, and with
mm,
that comes corruption and bad
mm,
morals,
mm.
and because of it, it is and the loss of God in our God was removed like in the 70s, a long time ago, back when I was like in high school. was removed from the classrooms. And so people they don't see themselves with a higher power. There's God anymore. And because of that, they become very immoral and just without a conscience. And so, but to see all that, and I think that's definitely come with the custody. And also because the courts have now become very involved in what is really a covenant between us and God. I've tried to, my mind can't figure it out, but I know in the Bible, like when I always forget who's who because I'm bad with names, remembering whose name. My children will even tell you I call them by their wrong name. But and my grandchildren, I have to pause. Oh my gosh, which one is this? Because I'm thinking I'm going to call them by the wrong name. But and they don't like that. And I don't want them to. They don't know that that's just part of my character. But anyway, I just think with some of these dangers and how scary it is for them to see children that way and to have these, it's just such a scary thing. And I just think having to let go, you have to be agreeable with somebody who's already left you for someone else. If they were able to come together in a civil way and both hear each other out and then do what's best for the child, you probably would still be married, right?
Married.
That's the silliest thing. Like, oh, you need to work it out. Why? We couldn't work it out before, obviously. And usually it's because somebody's not willing to listen or see what's best for the whole, right? And adultery, a man, mostly men, but women it's increasing. If you're going to jeopardize and go, well, this is what I want, it doesn't really matter. I want to be happy. I like this person better. I don't, whatever it is, that's a very selfish thing. They're not going to be thinking about the child and what's best for them either. And so you can't expect that. It's again, trusting God who's going to do it, who can block it, who can make impossibilities happen. Just like, I mean, Adina, your testimony is quite remarkable. I share it a lot. I share what happened to you a lot with a lot of people because they just can't see what could happen unless they go in and then they fight in the courts. And when the court is deciding instead of God, do you really want that? I don't think so. And sometimes it's going to be brought to court and there's nothing you can do about it. But say like, well, this whole topic comes up because here they are, well, it's usually men because they are battlers, right? We women, we can be nitpicky and we can be, I don't know, just whining about stuff or annoying, like those kinds of things. But usually, and relentless, but not in a physical sense. That's not the way we're made. We're not that way, that physical fighting back. Though we're getting more and more, the more women want to be like men and they take on their characteristics. And most of them is the negative ones, which is why I'm just, I hate feminism in any way, shape or form. And this one incident, oh, if I have this job, I should be paid the same, whatever. Yes. Okay. It should just be paid for the job, not what color your skin is or what gender you are. It doesn't really matter about that. I get that. But the way that they've taken it and then just ruined everything from it in this feminism, which is just becoming man haters and just women and men at each other when it should not be like that. There's a way that God created that a man and a woman should be together, have children together, they parent, and each of them brings something different. The man, the provider, the protector, and the woman is the nurturer and the carer and that sort of thing. It should be that way. And when it's that way, things just are so beautiful to watch. And I get to see that with most of my children, 6 out of the 7 married, but Anyway, but with this custody, and when you try and divide or you use that child to hurt the other one, or just because you need to have this possession, it's just scary. But now it's becoming life and death here more and more every day. Almost every day I watch just a short documentary about another man who he just decides to kill his wife because he doesn't want to pay child support. Right? Or
Yeah.
I stood up to him, or this last one, she was cheating. That was the wife that was cheating with another man. And he just said, well, the other man's not going to raise my child. So I'm going to kill her. She's not going to do that. It's not going to happen. Like the day before, they're going to go to court. It's a scary time here. I think to understand how scary that is, and not just in our own lives, but when we advise people and when we offer comment, there's people that they'll interview the family. Oh, I'm so glad she finally stood up for herself. Really? She's dead now? Is that really what you want? But they're so proud of them, and yet don't they see that this path that they took, and how is that destroying? Look how that destroys the child. Usually now they're raised by his parents or even his parents. How is that? If he's the murderer, how is his family should? I don't know. But they do that here in the United States. It doesn't really matter about that. But now they're not even being raised that they have a father in prison and a mother dead. And that's usually what it is. It's usually that way. It's usually the man killing the woman. But letting go in the relationship, saying you're moving forward, and let them go, and just fall in love with your heavenly husband who loves you. You'll be a much better mother or a parent. You'll be much easier to get along with, and then trust him to work things out. It's the only way, because to destroy a child, whether it's yelling and destroying them and having them crushed emotionally and damaged for the rest of their lives because of that, why? And there's nothing, we can't change the other person. We can only do ourselves and be that example, and having that gentle and quiet spirit. And none of that is possible unless you have that relationship with him and know his principles, know his promises. So anyway, that's why I wanted to have this topic. And it depends on the country, but I'm just going to tell you, the world is getting darker, and it's going to happen. And even if it's rare, I just think we need to be aware of it, and what we say to other people, and what we encourage to other people, and bringing the truth, and not being afraid to just share the truth, just in a loving way, or just think about this, but talking to your husband the whole time to say, should I say anything or not say anything? I think, and if I should say something, just help me to say the right thing, and then not be afraid to do that, and to mess up or act ditzy, like you said.
Yes, and what I like what you said is when you started, you didn't say it exactly this way. You know, I can never say someone's words exactly the way they said it. I say it like I hear it. So, but getting divorced is already showing that you're not putting the children first, right?
Exactly.
So how on earth could you then think that afterwards the children will be put first? So we're already starting with not putting the children first. Something very interesting. I read something, or I listened to something once, where they did a study where they said that the only relationship in where a child feels loved without you giving that child love is in a marriage where that child's mom and dad is married to each other, but it's their biological parents, right? That's married to each other. And if that child sees that the mother and father loves each other, that child already feels loved. That's the
Yes.
only relationship where there's like a third
And
party love,
a security too.
a
They
security.
feel a love and a security, because that's the way I grew up. I never saw my parents ever once fighting or arguing. Never once. They weren't, but interestingly, they weren't affectionate with one another either. But that was not big back in that time either, because my parents are quite a bit older. I mean, they raised their youngest children during the Depression. That's a long time ago. So that wasn't one of their things, but there was just this mutual adoration, right? Respect and adoration that they had for one another, and not seeing the fighting, and then working together. And just, I just had such a feeling of just being loved. And I believed I was the favorite with both of them. I probably was, but anyway, no. But I just remember feeling that way. And when you are not lacking, you're not looking for love or needs met or cover the pain, or all this we can give to our children. And most of it is the example that each of you has as a mother, that you just have this peace and contentment. And even without even saying anything, when you show that, they see what is it that she has, and they will start to find that, right, with that just calmness. But you're so right about that with and not just getting in divorce. And we know most countries are no fault divorce. So if one person wants a divorce, even if you don't, and also when you have that, and if you're new to this, once you tell your spouse, your husband, I don't want to get divorced, you don't have to keep telling them. They know it, right? And I think it just stems into the self-righteous. I know it because that was me. And then my having a good relationship with my heavenly husband, he's like, well, you don't have to keep telling them. That now you're bordering, or you're jumping right into being self-righteous. I don't want a divorce, but if you want a divorce, I won't stand in your way. I'm so much better than you. That doesn't sit well. That's not humility. But once you've stated, I don't really want this, but whatever you want to do, I'll just move on. And not being afraid to move on with your life, and to say that, it doesn't mean that you're moving on with another person. It doesn't mean that you're going to move on and do something that's not right, but it's moving on with him. And it doesn't mean that he won't be that isn't God's plan, that your marriage is restored. Just leave your husband, your spouse, to him, and he'll make sure that happens in the future. But there's a lot to do in that time. And so, yeah, I think that's really important. I think Adina probably needs to weigh in on.
Well, I want to share something about my own childhood, because I didn't grow up maybe in the most peaceful household. Both of my parents, my mother struggled with depression. Later, she was addicted to antidepressants. Then both of them at different stages were alcoholics. So it was very difficult, a difficult situation. But okay, both of them since passed away. But me and my brother were talking the other day, and despite all of everything that happened, we are just grateful for the fact that they stuck together.
Isn't that's huge what you just said, because do you know that was the way it used to be. I'm old, okay? So it used to be staying together for the children was the way, no matter what. And of course, stop fighting in front of them. Of course you want to do it, but staying together was very important. And then all of a sudden, I do not know what shifted. And a lot of the shifting comes from the United States. It comes from Hollywood. It comes from being those, it's propaganda in the movies and television, and what's accepted and what's not. And unfortunately, it's not a very good, godly environment. But all of a sudden, it was like, don't stay together. That's the worst thing. Don't stay together just for the children. Well, why not? What better reason than to do that? Like, grow up. We both need to grow up. We both need to stop this. We need to see that this is important for the children. And some would stay together until their children were out of the house. But even then, isn't that when they really need that stability and to be able to come home to a home and stuff? But at least just try that. I mean, it's a day at a time. That's a good, even that was something that became popular, I think, in the 60s. But it's biblical. It says, don't worry about what's going to be tomorrow. Just today has enough trouble of its own, right? And that's exactly, just get through that. But Yeah, I think that's wonderful that you brought that up. Staying together for the children. Again, you cannot stop the men, and they see that. It's so, and you also brought up something too, Yvonne, about step parents. A step parent isn't a parent unless a mother dies and then the
Mm.
father remarries or something. There's a little bit something, but that's so rare. It's not even need to be discussed in this context. But the step parents, they act like it is the same. It can't be. You and I, we all know what's different about our own children, especially when you've given birth to a child, or it's your own child. The child looks like you. There's just an investment that another, just to step in and pretend it's just a counterfeit. It's just so sad that it has to be called that and given the same, I don't know, rights or whatever. It's just not the same as two parents. There's a judge here that she has a TV shows, and now she's a justice or whatever, but she's very adamant, and she's Jewish, so she goes by the Jewish law. But whenever there's a dispute like that, if a stepmother or stepfather starts to weigh in, and she says, be quiet. This is between the parents. Be quiet. And she just tells them, I think, yeah, be quiet. It isn't. Stop getting involved in it. Even still, they're still telling their husband, do this or say this or whatever. And so often that's who's really running the show, is somebody who's not invested. It's somebody that didn't exist in their lives for forever. And all of a sudden they come in, and then it's them being in charge of everything. But the more complicated it gets, it just shows how much we just need to surrender all of those things and trust God. Because, I mean, he's very adamant about that, where it says we're not supposed to. We've had a lot of different things with our government, and so many governments are all unstable right now. And this guy is good, or this thing is good, but we shouldn't trust anyone. You're supposed to trust one whose trust is the Lord. That's who I trust. And if it's this, or even taking it way down to the smallest thing, I'll do it. I was going to say with my hair, I don't trust my hairdresser. I mean, I've gone to her forever, and she's a great person, but I don't trust her. She could totally mess me up. But every time I go in and I sit in that, and I might get a little nervous, like, oh my gosh, she's going to make it too light or too short, or cut my bangs too short, something like that. I say, I'm not going to, I don't trust her, but I trust you. If you want my bangs really short, then let her go ahead. I don't care. And then this last week, I made a mistake, and I started getting massages again. And so I went to this new massage therapist, and I have always used an organic lotion or oil. I always brought my own. I was very adamant about it. Well, this last time I went and I forgot it because I just moved, and I hung it on a door handle, which I didn't see. Anyway, I got there and I thought, should I cancel it? And I really started to get nervous because it makes me sick to have all those chemicals in my body. And so I asked him what I should do. And I just found myself going in, getting onto the table, laying there waiting for her, which is a really long time. But the Lord knew I just needed to talk to my husband. And I said, hey, should I get up? Is this going to be, I don't want to get sick. And then he reminded me about the promise that I said every single day during the COVID lockdown, those 2 years. And I still say it today, every one, but 1,000 will fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand. And, but it will not. And I've added a lot of different things, it will come near to you. Basically, it won't harm you. It won't come near to you. So he brought that to mind. I said it in my head, and I just thought, okay, I'm just going to relax. This should be interesting. So the smell was different from it, and I didn't say anything. And guess what? I didn't get sick from it. Now, it doesn't mean next time I go that's what I'm going to just use their lotion. I'll bring my own. But it was such a testimony. I didn't trust her. I didn't trust what she was using on me. But I just laid there and just relaxed because my trust was in him. And then I just had this perfect peace. And right, you've all experienced that, right?
Yes, for sure. That's actually our verse for the week is blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord and
And
whose
whose
trust
trust
is
is the
the
Lord.
Lord. Yes, that's our verse.
Yes, it's
So
beautiful. It's
beautiful.
and what it means, it's that you'll always have trees by water and it's yield its fruit in its season, which is one of my favorite because it's not instantaneous. It has to come, it's seasonal.
Mm,
So that's just a wonderful, wonderful. But trusting him, I think that's with parenting, with the dangers of custody, trusting him with the custody and saying things, telling your husband, wherever you want my children to be,
mm,
then put them there. And he
yeah,
can do it. And you could be
mm,
surprised and shocked. And again, I'm gonna promote your book, Adina, with your custody testimony. So make sure that it's added to this, so they don't have to go looking for it. But it's just a testimony. And even if you're not concerned about, I mean, everybody is now, or have somebody, it can open your eyes to so many things, the possibility every time. And I think we've had this conversation, Yvonne, so many times when we think, well, what could happen is this, or maybe this. And inevitably, he'll come up with a solution that, wait, that wasn't part of the list. It's like nothing I would have ever thought would happen. But he
yeah.
loves to do that. He loves to do that. He loves to wow us and impress us. And so we're in complete awe. And it's a wonderful place to be. But if you're constantly in control and you're trying to fix things and make things happen and also if I'm more perfect, if I follow these, you don't have to do that.
Mm,
Hide God's word in your heart so
mm,
you won't sin against him. That's what it says. And then just trust also in him and he will do it, and constantly referring to him. I can't do it. What should I do? And just then not be afraid that you're going to mess up. And when you do mess up, get excited because he gets to bail you out. You've messed up again. You just think about the best husband ever, like, oh, darling, I messed up. I dinged the car. I ran into the car, right? I damaged the car. It's all right, darling. I'm going to go over here. Oh, they found that the brakes are about to go out. You just saved your whole family's life. It's those kinds of scenarios with him all the time, just trusting him that he loves us that much. So anyway,
exactly. Yeah.
have we exhausted this, the life and
Um,
death?
so
Yeah.
I just want to come back to
Mm,
something
mm,
he showed me when I spoke to him because I'm in this situation and I don't know about Adina much, but I'm in the situation that especially when the children were younger, right? It wasn't like my former husband was the one making the decisions. It was his wife making the
mhm,
decisions. So
mhm.
I did go
That's
to,
very common.
and I did go to
Mhm,
my husband and I said, it's she's ruling our lives. It's not that the two of us are deciding
mhm,
over the children. And he said something very, very interesting to me that I'll never forget. He said that I don't have to worry about who's making the decisions that side, because in the end, it's what he decides what happens, right? And I shouldn't be worried about any of those things because he won't let, it's like you said, he won't let harm come to my children.
mhm,
That,
mhm,
without it being there for a reason. And then
mhm,
also that if my former husband lends his ears out to his wife and lets her decide, that's on him and not on me. So it's not for
mhm,
me to try to even solve that by
mhm,
saying anything or anything like that. For me, it's just to keep quiet and do what he tells me to do
mhm,
and just leave the rest to him. So it gave me so much peace in that time because it was really a time for me where I was struggling with that. And I can assume that the ladies that's listening, there would be some that's struggling with that as well because it feels like
mhm. I'm
your
sure a
life is
lot.
controlled by
Mm.
someone else, right?
Mhm,
But he just gave me so much peace.
mhm.
He said that ultimately he's the one that decides everything, even though I see it in my eyes as, someone else deciding my life. So,
And and a lot of times it's not going to be your decision, or you would want to spare your children from that. But let
mm,
me just talk about that. Children who have been spared from all these things, they're not ready for life. right? And they don't learn how to navigate those difficulties, right?
Yes.
If you have this total protection and then they haven't gone through it. And I have to say, so I have 13 grandchildren, and I forgot to count, but I don't know how many. Most of them are teens now. The majority are teens, are soon to be. I'll count them later. But anyway, so with teens and things, I think to see those who have gone through the greatest struggle, some have gone through with health, some have gone through with their parents not, there's been different things, separation. I know there's one that, there was a divorce and then a remarriage and those kinds of things. But those children are so unique. Some of them that have, where I would love to snatch them out and come live with me, for some times, right? Because of whatever's going on. But they're the ones that they're special in a way. They have something, and they have a compassion and empathy and a richness, and it came because of them going through. I mean, didn't we all change from what we went through? And because it's going through because we're there and we're involved with them and we can share God's truth with them, promises, and they can see our lives when we go through it. I don't believe in sharing a lot of details with children because they shouldn't, we don't have any money, we're broke, and look, we can't pay the rent, those kinds of things. It's too much for a child to have to do. But even if that does happen, or something where they know it's not, to see how we navigate it, you're equipping them for life. And there's a lot of life that they're going to live after they become an adult, right? And that's what you want to leave. That's the legacy. It's not about leaving money or houses or property. That's a nice thing, I guess, with sometimes it ruins children and the next generation. But leaving that kind of a legacy so that they know where their source comes from, their happiness, their protection, everything is from somewhere else. And unless you have an example or you can help them through it, they would never know it. So in a way, our children are more blessed because they've had to be part of it. We don't want that for our children. We don't want them to come from a broken family, but it wasn't our choice. But whether God allow it, God set it up, it was his plan, just like you said. And he is the one ultimately in control. He's not going to let anything. We know that where it was Satan, right? He came and he said, I'm going to sift you. He's asked permission to sift you as wheat, but he said, you can do everything when it comes to Job, but you can't do this. You can't do this. God is in control. There's not, let's see who's going to win this battle. He's won it. He can win any time. But sometimes for the testimony, for the example, to build our faith, he allows those to happen. But he also does it with our children. So it doesn't mean that we're not supposed to be the way that our instinctive to protect our children. That's an instinctive thing, but sometimes we can't, right? You can't stop what's going on when they're with the other parent and things, and the step parent and these different things. You can't, but you do what you can, and equipping the children is really, and giving them that relationship with their Heavenly Father to start out with, or that best friend that can be with them all the time. So, yeah.
That's for sure. Now, Adina, I want to come to you, but I first want to just give a praise regarding a testimony regarding what you just said, Erin, because so it was about for almost 2 weeks that we were without hot water in my house.
Oh my gosh.
So if we wanted to take a bath, we could not. So we had to have boil a kettle of water and then
my goodness,
wash that way. And it was, of course, frustrating for me. But in the last 2 weeks, and after, he showed me that my children did not complain one day. They didn't say a word. They didn't complain because there wasn't hot water. They would make a game of it in the evening to, when it's time to wash ourselves, they would make a game of it, and they would play each other for who's going to boil the kettle first, things like that. They would
Wow.
do stuff with it. And I was just afterwards, but I didn't realize it in the time, right?
Right.
When I
Well, you're all
reflect,
cut up in it. That's a huge thing. And most things you don't realize, wow, let's look back at that. Wow.
and when I reflected on it, I saw that, and I saw that, wow, and I
What
don't
other
think
children would be
that
like
way.
that?
Exactly. Because just this week, my daughter told me that so she last year when it was her birthday, her dad couldn't buy her a gift, and they felt bad about it, but she was okay. She said, "Mom, what does it matter, But her stepmom is still using it as an example that whenever her son asks for something, she would tell him, but you know what? Mia didn't even ask for a present. She didn't even say anything. She was just okay
Mm.
with not getting a present for her birthday. And here you are, just trying to. And I don't think that what she does is correct, right? I don't think
No,
that,
I mean, I
but,
doubt it's going to
but
make him
it,
want to be like
of
Mia,
course,
right?
yes,
More bitter, if
exactly,
anything, right?
exactly.
Maybe she
But
should just
just
look at what do I need to do differently, right?
is, yeah, but just the
Mm,
idea of seeing,
mm,
that she uses my
yes.
children as the example
Yes.
of what children should be like. And it's
Mm.
got nothing to do
Wow,
with me.
that's
It's
telling,
just
isn't it?
everything that they went through, It's like
Mm.
it's just had them to rely on a heavenly Father because they couldn't
Hmm.
rely on
Hmm.
me. Because for a time I was broken and they couldn't really rely on me. And so they had to rely on him, and just look at how it turned out that they are just thankful for everything. And it was just that, like I said, in the moment I didn't even think about it, but afterwards I reflected, and I, I had a bit of a cry about it because I was like,
Hmm.
wow, so thankful for what my children went through because it's making them good
Hmm. And it's
adults.
not something you would
No,
definitely choose, but look at
no.
that. And I think it's a testimony to you, and it's confirmation. Your husband's saying, look, because as mothers, we're concerned. How is this affecting them? And you want to be able to see it. Well, just like what I started out with, I've always been concerned that was it the right thing to stay in this marriage where this person is just being, people say, well, why did you stay? Well, first I believe in it, but just they didn't have the example of a good
Mm,
example to be a mother, I mean, a father and a husband. And yet all of a sudden, my husband started pointing out, look at this. Where did that
mm,
come from? Right?
mm,
Because there
mm.
wasn't an example, but just to see that and if it hadn't been that way, would they be that? I don't think so. If they had
No.
just had a what we would think of as a normal and what we would plan as mothers, you have
Mm,
two parents, they stay together, they're loving. Would they have that kind of compassion and that understanding, having compassion and empathy for somebody who's going through something, right? People
yes.
they're going to have that as well. And every
Mm.
time you share those stories, it humbles me because I think so often when everything isn't just perfect here, I think, just what are you even thinking about? Look at those ladies, they have load shedding when my internet isn't fast enough. Oh, and I think you're just spoiled. Look at this is what they go through all the time. And I share it. And I share my like I'm spoiled because I don't take or when it gets so hot there, it gets
Mm.
really hot where we are, but I've got air conditioning, so I can't be complaining at all. Or the temperature of my water, at least I've got hot water. Now that's why because I've heard your story. Oh my goodness, but what a wonderful testimony and just proof that, and that's the thing. It says you'll know by the fruits. So are you doing the right thing? Are you
Mm.
being the best mother? Are you really enjoying your children? You're enjoying them even through these difficulties and watching them mature.
Mm.
And just think about how they're going to be as adults and
Mm.
in marriage. What a
Mm.
wonderful, wonderful gift that you've given them. And every single woman, mother that's listening can give them the same gift. It costs nothing. It doesn't, and it doesn't need to be, you have to be any, you didn't need to be smart. You can be ditzy. We've proven that. You can be anything because it's not trusting in us, it's trusting in him. And I think that's a wonderful gift. And you can have that relationship. You don't have to hope that he's going to fall in love with you. He's in love with you. I think we have a song coming up for the anniversary that I sing all the time. And it's especially for women who just don't acknowledge that they have this husband who's hanging around and wanting them so much. And it's just like, give him the time. You're missing out while you're all stressed or you're chasing after this person who doesn't want you. You've got this person right there. So just acknowledge that. So, yeah.
I love that. I love what you said there. You know, just to enjoy every moment with him because he's just there. It's just that, and not worry. And it's in our nature, right? So we have to catch ourselves before.
Yes. And we are human. I would forget that. It is in our human nature. But that to switch over to the other, I always think of it as like having to, well, like we have, there's electricity that's connected to the power grid here, or there's the like solar or something, right? That it's coming directly from the Son of God. But it's constant. It's always there. It's always reliable. It doesn't cost you anything. And switching from one to another. So one is a natural thing, but saying, no, I want to switch to this because and to having that switching to that other tank or that other source and plugging into that source because it's endless. It never stops.
I was just thinking about
endless. It's time. There's no time. 24 hours a day, never miss. It doesn't matter what time, the middle of the night, first thing in the morning, late at night, whenever it is, he is there all the time. And just acknowledging, and then something will come into your head that you know is not you. I couldn't have thought that up. I would never have come up with that. And just to see so that he can wow you with that, to just show he's there. And then being able to share that in the best way with your children so that they have that same gift and they understand tapping in. I'm trying to do it much more with my younger children, or with my grandchildren. But the interesting thing is that I wasn't permitted because I was too spiritually weird. I could have told you that though, but I was not allowed when I was married. Their father did not allow me to tell them things, but guess what? They saw it anyway, and they live it. I watch them, and I hear the testimonies, and I think, well, where did that come from? Because they saw it, and even though I wasn't telling them, and I think that's important too, because sometimes you don't have custody, or you're not able to, or you forgot to say something, but it's never too late to do it, and he can catch you up too. Even if you're just new to this, oh, I have so far to go. You'd be surprised how it miraculously can bring you right up to where you need to be, well beyond where a regular journey would be. So don't worry about that either.
For sure. So, Adina, I would like to give over to you to end our podcast for today. What do you have to say for us here?
Well, for me, I think the one thing I'm the most grateful for on this whole journey is that, you know, if I look back on how I was previously, I would have easily fall into the trap of making custody like a life or death thing. But, you know, what I'm so grateful for is that the Lord just stepped in, you know, at that crucial time before the divorce and everything happened. And that I was able to, although in the beginning it was very new on my journey, it was with fear, you know, I was able to apply a lot of the principles in terms of, you know, especially from the Facing Divorce book. So I was able to go
The
through that.
Facing Divorce book again, the one where it's enthusiastic, or the
sorry,
first one?
that,
Oh, the second one. Yes, yes.
so I was able to apply those things, and all, like I said, it was with a bit of fear at that point, but because of that, you know, our co-parenting situation was always peaceful. There was never fighting. Even
I
when
think that's why the miracle that you got was so substantial because of that, because you had that foundation there. He will build upon it, right? And so
Yes.
yes, you did beautifully with that.
Yes, and I think then also when the custody case, because that was like almost 2 years after the divorce that the custody case happened. And yes, in the beginning, and if you read my book, I did make mistakes in the beginning. But I think when after I really spent a lot of time with the Lord and He just gave me that peace, I was, you know,
and
you
God
can
definitely used it for good. If you hadn't made
Yeah.
those mistakes, you're not real, you're not human. And the fact that you did was part of the testimony that He was writing into your life, so that you would have this testimony to
Yes,
encourage me all the time. I'm always thinking about it. And it's not like I'm battling custody. I'm you know, that definitely empty nester. It's not that. It's just there's so much into that, and what God can do when you just trust Him. He can do things that you could never have dreamt up. It's like it would be like a Hollywood movie, and you go, "Come on, this can't happen," and yet it happened. It happened. It's
because I think
better.
our fleshly instinct
Mhm.
is to want to fight back, you know,
Right.
and to protect our children. That's like, but you know, when we know the Lord and we know Him as our husband and we have Him as our husband, then you know we can surrender this and let Him work it out for good. Because I knew once He gave me that peace regarding this whole situation, and that I would go through that season, but it will turn around. Then I was able to go through it, and up until today, we still have a peaceful co-parenting. There's, you know, no issues regarding fighting about anything. So we always have this peaceful, and it's not me, it's just Him,
Yes.
the Lord giving me that, you know, or guidance, when to keep quiet, when to say something, how to say it, what to do. So, and I think that's something
You
for
brought up, and I don't want to
example.
continue, something we've never really talked about. What makes custody and this all so difficult is that as a mother, as a parent, of mother or father, there's a protection that's built in to protect the young that God has given you. And it's just instinctive. And it's a good thing. However, what makes it so difficult is I'm going to protect them from who should be protecting them. Do you know? This is their
Yes.
father. It's honor father and mother. That's when it becomes so complicated, so tricky, and why we shouldn't even try and figure it out. Protecting against, and I do know that there's these awful fathers that were doing, but in this sense of custody, how do you do that? You know, you can't. They're supposed to be doing that. It makes it just so complicated. So I think the more complicated, the better it is, because you have to know you can't do it, right? Everybody has to get to the end of themselves before sometimes they just trust God. But right away from the get-go, it's too complicated to know how and how to work it out, because they do need, not just I need to have them. They need a father. They need their father with it. And or maybe they don't need their father. Maybe that's not what God has planned. No, this is bad because you don't know, right? But the good thing is that you're not in control. He's in control. And especially when you give over control, then He can work better, and you can live a happy life and have that peace that your children need. They're going to feed off of your stress, or they're going to feed off of that that peace that you have. They have to have a place of peace, because when they go, to spend time with their father or something, it could be very uncomfortable situation for them. And yet, but they can come to, and I think you've mentioned that, Yvonne, because your children just are so happy to just be home where they can relax and there's a peace in the home. And that was what not only my children felt, but other teens and 20-somethings, they said there's such a peace in your house. I just love to hang out here. That's important. And that's because he's there. He's in control. He's in charge there. And they can feel that. But I'm sorry, you were supposed to finish it, Adina, but I had to say about the complications of that. Sorry.
No, I just want to add what really touched my heart from, and I think it's Finding the Abundant Life. It's the chapter, Your Best Protection, that really, during the custody case, stood out for me and really spoke to me a lot, was that how can you fight against their dad? The Lord gave the children to you and him equally, so, and how do you fight against? You can't really. So I just wanted to add that, because that was really what also had a big impact on how I went through the custody case after I made the mistakes I made, but that brought peace to me, to my heart as well. And because there's no physical danger on that side, there's nothing like that. Then and the Lord is with them. He's their Heavenly Father. He's there with them, so I can just trust him. I know it's not always perfect, but there are some things that I pick up, but I just give it to the Lord, to my husband, and I can have peace with it and know that he will work it out in some way for them. And it's just being able also to give my children the example of being in the situation and just having how I am dealing with it, and how we are interacting with each other, even despite, what the situation is, and having that peace. So, yeah.
Thank you. And with that, Adina, we're going to close off. And I want to say that I guess what we can close off with is that if it wasn't for him, we would have all been the woman that would be fighting in the street,
for sure. I was a tomboy too. It would be nasty.
So it would definitely have been all of us, and putting our children unnecessary in a very dangerous situation, because you don't know how things like that can suddenly
You have no idea. Almost
yes.
everyone where it was this documentary or this news thing, they all said he was the least, we would never expect that from him. He's just not the type. So you don't want to go there. Most importantly is trust him for it and keep in perfect peace. Yeah. Only way is when you can trust him.
Thank you so much. And with that, we can close our podcast for today. Thank you, ladies, for being here. Always wonderful to have you here. And ladies listening, I hope that you've been blessed by this and that you've learned something, and that you can now go to him and ask him, what does he want to show you from this podcast on how you can do things differently, or maybe just continue the way you're doing because you already rely on him so much. So thank you. With that, ladies, I say goodbye. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.